talk to a salesperson.
Hi everybody, my name is Darlene Rondo and I'm the Vice President Best Practices for Leonardo's Online Merchandising Group, and I'm going to be your host for today's web event. I'd like to thank everyone around the globe, and I know there are people from all over the world because you've been sending us questions in the GoToMeeting question box telling us where you're from. So to those, especially for whom it's the middle of the night, a really warm welcome. A few housekeeping items before we begin. First, we're going to be recording the webinar, and at the conclusion of today's session, we're going to send you a thank you for joining us email with a link to that recording, which you can share or listen to again at your leisure. Additionally, as I just mentioned, there is a questions box in your GoToMeeting panel. So as we move through our presentation today, please feel free to send in your questions. Oh, someone from Portugal just joined us. Hi, Sandy. So please feel free to send in your questions. We'll address them throughout the webinar as well as at the end of the presentation. We're also going to be live tweeting during the discussion. You can see the hashtag on the screen, hashtag LeoWebinar. At first, I'd like to introduce a very special guest, Leila Rack. Leila is the founder and partner of Rack Enterprises, which is a firm specializing in educating hospitality professionals on best practices in hotel management, marketing, and sales. Leila was formerly Dean of the NYU Hospitality School and has been recognized as one of the thought leaders in hospitality by Forbes, Hospitality Sales and Marketing Association, Travel Weekly, and many others. Dr. Leila Rack is an internationally recognized keynote speaker and an author who's highly sought after for her straightforward approach to business concerns and creative solutions that result in genuine ideas and uncommon strategy. She obtained her Doctor of Education specializing in higher education from George Washington University, and she also has an MBA and a Bachelor of Science from the University of Wisconsin. Combined with her 30 years of hospitality experience, Leila is going to be a wealth of knowledge for today's webinar. And Leila is a super entertaining speaker, so I know we're going to enjoy every word she shares with us today. So welcome, Leila.
Oh, good morning, Darlene. I'm just delighted to be with you, regardless of where everyone else is. I hope that we are able to provide you with great information.
Thanks, Leila. We have another notable panelist with us today, Woody Hinkle. Woody is Principal and Creative Director of Nasuti and Hinkle Creative Thinking, a brand development and creative firm focused on independent hotels and collections. Woody is a well-respected brand strategist with 30 years of experience in the travel industry. Together with his wife, has worked as a creative brand development consultant at Nasuti and Hinkle for 27 years. Woody has worked with notable brands including Marriott, Days Inn, Renaissance, Hershey Resorts, and more to help them find their stories and to drive more revenue. Today, Woody is going to be talking about the strategy he developed for Sunset at the Palms in Jamaica to help them differentiate themselves from other resorts in the area. Welcome, Woody. Good to have you here as well.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
And as we do with all of our webinars, we launch a poll because we'd like to get a sense of where the audience is coming from. And so today's poll is, we'd like you to finish the answer. I haven't focused on telling my hotel story because I don't have time to redo my website. My property doesn't have a story that stands out. I don't really have a budget to pay a webmaster or agency to do it, and I'm not convinced that stories help sell more rooms. So the audience is weighing in, and I'll let everybody, give everybody another few seconds to answer. And it looks like kind of neck and neck how to get started, and not sure how to, not convinced that stories help sell more rooms. So let everybody weigh in just a few more minutes, a few more seconds rather. And so, yeah, it seems like those are the two most popular answers. So thanks everybody. I'm going to close the poll and we're going to move on with today's presentation. As you guys know, today we're going to be talking about how to use storytelling to drive purchase intent, website conversions, and search engine optimization. And that conversation starts with understanding the impact that storytelling has on a travel shopper. But before we go any further, let me explain what I mean when I talk about storytelling. Storytelling is all of the ways you communicate your property's brand to the outside world. Online, it includes things like images, videos, and virtual tours, your website copy, the look and feel of your website, your social media pages, and much more. Now, you're probably wondering, so what does storytelling have to do with driving more revenue? As I know some of you in the poll answered, you don't believe that storytelling helps to sell more rooms. Well, it does, and we're going to share that with you today. As our previous communications about this webinar have indicated, we are going to share that how storytelling will have a dramatic influence on your bottom line, not just by increasing bookings, but also driving more ancillary revenue. And in some cases, telling the right story can even earn you the right to charge more for your rooms over competitors. And we're going to dive into these things more with Leila and Woody. Before our speakers begin, I just want to quickly touch on the state of digital marketing for hoteliers. Today, 75% of travel bookings overall come through online travel agencies. And according to Hebs Digital, although hotels are becoming more marketing savvy, there's still a lot of room for improvement when it comes to increasing their percentage of direct bookings. The problem is that a lot of businesses, both in and outside of the industry, are moving their marketing efforts online to point consumers to the point where consumers get bombarded by all these marketing messages. According to Media Dynamics, they're a media research company, the average person is exposed to 5,000 brand messages each day, and of those, only 360 or so enter our perception. Of those, only about 150 are what we pay attention to, and then of those, we only engage with about 12 of them. That is less than 0.25% chance of getting noticed and eliciting a response. So today we're going to discuss how to make the most of that small window of opportunity. Let's also quickly touch on the current state of search engine optimization and organic search and what role storytelling plays in that. Over the last few years, search engine optimization has moved away from basic, what we call keyword stuffing in website copy to be much more sophisticated. In fact, the Content Marketing Institute suggests that high-quality, relevant content is really now what influences Google search results. Relevant content simply means telling the right story to the query that the consumer is typing into that search box. So, therefore, storytelling is really key to your SEO strategy and in getting found online. Relevant storytelling has also been proven to scientifically increase the probability of a sale. There was an experiment that was done several years ago, and they wanted to understand the impact of telling a narrative on an object's subjective value. And so what they did was they got a whole bunch of creative writers to invent stories about things that were truly worthless in value, like an old key from a hotel room or magnifying glass, items like that. And so the writers created these stories around these seemingly worthless items, and they put them on eBay to see how much they could sell them for. So they took $130 worth of worthless things. They told stories around them, and they raised almost $4 million in net profit in sales of those items. So the experiment, which was called Significant Objects, really proved that you can transform insignificant things into significant ones. And we as human beings are drawn to, and we connect with stories, we feel stories, we understand and remember stories. And there are a lot of hoteliers that I've seen who believe in the value of storytelling, and in fact so much so that they've been able to increase prices against their competitive set because they're telling a better story than the next guy. So we're going to be talking about that today, how to find your story and then tell it in a way that creates an emotional connection. Because remember, emotional value is what influences actual value. So with that, I am going to turn this over to Leila Rack, and Leila's going to continue telling us, sharing with us the value of storytelling. Leila?
Well, thank you, Darlene. Hello, everyone. I'm so delighted to be talking to you today about storytelling as a way to improve your hotel fundamentals and your overall financial success. I'm going to begin by telling you a story. When I was growing up in a small town of 800 people in Wisconsin, a woman who lived across the street from me would sit on her front porch in a beautiful wicker chair, and she would tell me stories of her travels to exotic places like Chicago or Atlanta or Paris, places I never thought I would see. And then one day she brought out pictures of her trip to New York City. And that's when I began to imagine that I could visit such places myself. So she took her words and she added pictures to it. Her words, which were wonderful, but I couldn't imagine how tall those buildings were. I couldn't imagine how many people could make a sidewalk so crowded that you simply would be pulled along with the crowd. But when I saw the pictures and heard the words, well, that was just something entirely different. And so the first point that I have today is a good storyteller uses all mediums at their disposal. And as I move throughout my slides, please consider all the tools that you have at hand to make your story come alive. Because what you are trying to do is plant memories. You're trying to create longing and the need to come and be and see and do. A great story is a way to make a potential guest an insider, to help them imagine their success during the stay at your property. The stories you tell should allow the guest to think about what may be to you ordinary or everyday, but to the guest it's likely part of the unknown, the rarely experienced, and the reason for choosing your property. A well-told story will really impact your business by issuing an enticing invitation. And if you think about it, invitations are often not very enticing on our websites or in our blogs or on social media. And a story can bring that invitation to life to potential guests, and also reminding those who have visited previously why they should return again. A well-told story, in my mind, provides information in layers so you can assist the guest in accomplishing their goals. And you never know what the goal of your guest is. It could be to experience history. It could be to see a side of the city they've never imagined, or it could be bringing a deal to a close, because a great story can work for both leisure and business clients. But to be a great story, and that's the issue here, it's not just telling a story, it's telling a great story, and you must create an effective narrative. So I'd like you to consider 3 elements that matter as you create your tale. The first thing is, when we're engaged and connected, we are more likely to relate. And so a story allows us to see, and I put that in quotes, see ourselves enjoying, succeeding at the hotel. So what you want to do is place the story in a memorable format that entertains and maintains interest. And if you think about it, you are constantly told to make certain your website has great content. But what's often forgotten in that is that content must have context. And context is what allows the blending of words with pictures and graphics to further that connection, to assist the guest in placing themselves in your hotel, to imagine creating memories and success.
And Leila, Nancy from the audience is asking, can you give me a simple example of what you mean by content and context?
Well, content is you've got words up, you've got some pictures, but there's no real connection between them. And so I think about context as perhaps you have some words and some graphics, but you add an audio portion of someone at your hotel explaining that picture. And giving it context is giving meaning to the words and the pictures.
Excellent. Okay? Thank you.
So the first thing, or not the first thing, but the next thing I can say to you is your stories have to be real. And I would encourage you to think about them in episodes, because that will increase your site visitation. And I'm not talking about a soap opera, but to be continued, because you're looking for increased visitation, you're looking for increased feedback, which ultimately leads to bookings. The reality of the story should flow naturally from the individuality of your property. The worst thing you can do is look at somebody else's story and then try to put your name into it. It's got to be your story. The other thing I would urge you to do is, in the realness of it, encourage your readers, your visitors, your guests to provide input, to create their story. The best story comes from somebody who was there, who visited, who experienced. So a quick tip for you all, and then Darlene, I'll let you record yourself and others as they talk about your property. And that audio file accompanying the slides will generate further interest. Okay.
Excellent.
Okay. So we can move ahead. So what you need to do is think about devising your story. It's not real complicated, but it does require thought on your part. It takes time to alight on the story that aligns with the natural strengths of your property, whether it's location, physical presence, the intimate or romantic qualities, the first or unusual offerings, or the personnel. So for an example, when you talk about personnel, I've stayed in hotels that the languages of the associate speaks, it's printed on their name tag. And that's a wonderful thing. But imagine that you could have your associates meet your guests prior to checking in. And that associate, in my native tongue, would explain to me what they love to do in their hotel or their city. So they're telling the story, and that allows you to make your policy part of the story. Your policy is to employ individuals who are multilingual, but it's not telling it as a bullet point. It's making it come alive in a way that connects me. The best stories are based on what you might consider ordinary or everyday, but are real or unusual to others. And so they have to be true. And they have to be based on what you are best at as determined by your guest. They should demonstrate a sense of humor, not jokes, but a funny story. Something along the lines, recently we decided to go back to our roots, but in doing so, we forgot XXX. The best stories are updated and archived. So be natural. Enjoy yourself as you create an actual online experience. So when you think about it, I'm going to let that slide advance itself. There are some things that I talked about that you can look at later, and it's all talking about making it real and live. But why storytelling? So in today's world, your business relationship must be authentic and distinctive. You have to, as Darlene said, you have to break out. And while you know, in that case, neither hardware nor formula sustains sales success because it's not providing the experience that is expected by your clients. And so a great hotel professional, in my mind, constantly excels by valuing knowledge and ideas and understanding that they have to use that to display a breadth and depth of experience on their social media, on their website. And to do that, you want to blend those pictures, those videos, those auto recordings, and I would even suggest to you adding infographics. That's something we've all become used to and we love to read. Those are very effective vehicles and they stage your story.
That's an interesting tip, Leila, because all around us we see infographics, as you just said, but we don't often see them in hotel storytelling.
No, and it doesn't have to, we're not talking about statistics. We're
Right.
talking about information put in a interesting way to look at and think about. It could be the journey from the airport to the hotel. It could be the journey from the hotel to the bar. It doesn't, you think about, again, the ordinary sometimes.
Yep.
But what you're looking to do is create a short story within that infographic. And you know, one of the best, for me, Instagram. It's a great platform for condensed stories built on pictures. So you're going to blend a coherent mix of pictures and words and perhaps audio. Because there are two things you know about all your clients. They are time-starved and they have no patience. So you have to be brief to provide perspective, to be personal, and to persuade.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about storytelling, the first thing I suggest to you is think about your own staff, because you need to find someone, and here's one example of a type of storyteller, and that's the truth teller. This might be someone on your staff, you need to think about it, who always speaks and writes in the first person. They might say, "It appears we have something in common. We think of life as an adventure. Can you describe an adventure from last week?" This is a truth teller. They're the type of person who loves to learn. They love to learn what they don't know because they're so inquisitive. They might ask you questions and you just think, "Oh, please." But that's a truth teller, and it's someone who's unafraid to tell a story, and they want to share with others the authentic aspects of your property. They might look at the emotional aspects, the sounds, the sights, the smells, the colors, and there it just rolls off their tongue when they say to someone, "We're experts at XXX, providing comfort, extending your experience." But listen to what they have to say. And it is the fact that then the storyteller, the observer, they will narrate, they will challenge, they will inquire. Tell me about what combinations come to your mind when you think about. And you need to listen to them as they observe the hotel around them. The third type of storyteller that I would suggest to you is called the illustrator. And this is a person who is readily able to tell about your property because they're like a historian. They know things about how something works or doesn't work. They know why it was renovated or why it wasn't renovated. And this is a person who sees the hotel as their home. And they want to tell others ways to be comfortable and what their favorite is. So when you think about these three types of storytellers, it's listening to your staff and hearing what they have to say.
So, Leila, sorry, Jorge from the audience wants to know, so are you saying that we should identify people on property who are these kinds of people and then enlist them to help you?
Yes, oh, absolutely. And why I say is you would record them because then you can either use the audio file. I mean, you have to get their approval. There are things you have to do, but it comes so naturally. Or you can take the audio file and you can pull things from it to create a written story and then use pictures, graphics, video.
Gotcha.
But it creates that sense of real.
Mm-hmm. Great. And to the audience, please keep your questions coming in the questions dialog box. We're happy to tee them up as we move through. So, Leila, back to you.
All right. So in closing out my session of my portion of this, I have 3 trends that I'm going to present to you that I believe tie back to why you should consider building or expanding your storytelling ability. And what it all comes back to is it underscores the need you have to develop deep connections with your guest. And the first trend is loyalty. And I don't know if this is a trend or a reality, but the point of it is loyalty is becoming even more complicated. As guests are becoming more skeptical, they expect more, and in some ways they are becoming more blasé. And the reason for this is your guests are more educated. They're more sophisticated, and by far they are more complicated. Now, a lot of hotels think that points indicate loyalty, and that status designations indicate a level of loyalty. Well, that's really not true. It really indicates how often one stays, and you can say, well, isn't that loyalty? Nah, they may not have a choice. Loyalty is based upon emotion. It is based on feelings of trust, and appreciation and caring that transcend the usual. And that's where storytelling can bridge a loyalty gap. The second trend is virtual reality expectations. One cheap way for all of us to experience virtual reality is to get the Google Cardboard box, and I think about it as a Viewmaster on steroids. If any of you remember the Viewmaster from your childhood, it's a cardboard virtual reality viewer that you put your iPhone into, and you hold it up to your eyes, and you move your head, and the world becomes 3D. It just is incredible, and it allows you to enhance whatever you're looking at. Now, that's, shall we say, the low end. The high end of virtual reality is called Oculus Rift goggles, far more expensive, far more cumbersome, but it's just the beginning. And some of you may have seen Google Glasses, but the point of it is that by the end of this decade, all websites, all online media is going to be required to have virtual reality. And what this means is we're going to be able to step into a room, a suite, a bar. We're going to be able to actually view and experience what we will have on property, far different from today. So it's going to make taking the room for a test drive a reality. You should become aware of it. The third and final trend I have is the increased demand for real. And I put some words after that because I don't care how you define it. We want real engagement. We overuse certain words and phrases today, and in doing so, they lose their meaning. We talk about farm to table, artisan, or handcrafted. We talk about luxury. We throw these words about without substance or essence. So when you say it's authentic, it must be. Not a knockoff, not kind of maybe. It has to be real. So if you're going to tell me prior to my trip, this is authentic or real, that's what it's got to be when I get there. It was lovely to be with you today, and I wish you luck in writing the best story to improve your financial success.
That was excellent, Leila. Great insights and practical tips. In fact, one question before we continue. Kim wants to know, what was that first option you said, that inexpensive option with the iPhone? That was Google Cardboard?
Yeah, Google Cardboard.
Excellent. There you go, Kim. Check it out. So just to wrap up what Leila was talking about, and I'll start with her last point first. Storytelling works best when it feels true and looks real and is real, and that resonates with humans, with your guests. And you can do all of those things with pictures, video, sound, because we don't live our life one-dimensionally. We live in a multi-dimension world. So when we take all of those things and combine them together, puts it into context, as Leila was talking about, it helps the guest understand, here's what you can expect when you arrive, and to take it a step further, when they have that experience that you promise them, they're going to write a great review. And so it's this, this self-fulfilling prophecy. Also, sort of, be one with your audience. So you have to, and Leila said, don't try and be somebody else. Be who you are, and be who attracts your guests. So you know what your guests like. Be that, communicate that, and then you'll be able to relate to them, they'll relate to you, and that will go an awfully long way in creating that long-term relationship that everyone wants. Emotions are powerful allies and sales tools, actually, and nothing creates a better connection for the majority of consumers today than visual storytelling. We see it everywhere. We see it in travel. We certainly see it in all of the other businesses that are around. And it kind of seems like a duh thing, but at the end of the day, you're trying to drive more business to your hotel, whether that is from new guests or returning guests. And so you need to invite that next action. So whatever it is, you want to move them through that shopping journey so that they get to the end of the line and then return the next time they have a trip. So thanks again, Leila. And Leila's going to be with us. We'll have a couple of minutes for questions at the end. Thanks very much. Now, I would like to reintroduce Woody Hinkle, and Woody is going to talk to us about the same subject, only from the perspective of Sunset at the Palms. So, Woody, over to you.
Thank you. The title of this seminar is Visual Storytelling to Get More Than Your Fair Share of Business, but as I was thinking about this, it seemed to me that the title really could be Visual Storytelling to Get More Than Your Fair Share of Business, because storytelling lets you paint an experiential picture of your hotel or resort, and people buy experiences, and if they want your experience, they'll probably pay a premium for it, but that's a really long title. The point, though, I think is a good one, and that is that your website shouldn't just be, pardon me, about the nuts and bolts of restaurants, room varieties, and rates. I think it's more effective if you use it to preview what the guests will experience at your property, just as Leila was saying, and you do that by telling stories. I'm going to tell you the story of how we created a website for Sunset at the Palms, and in doing that, I think I'm going to respond to those two primary concerns that you voiced in the poll, and that is that how to get started, how to actually do it, and that you don't believe it will work. And I think I'm going to be able to show you answers to both of those. Sunset at the Palms is a all-inclusive resort in Negril, Jamaica, and I just want to make a note here that some of the references that I'm going to make while I'm telling this story apply to a resort, but the thoughts and concepts are relevant whether you are a resort hotel, a meetings and conventions property, an airport hotel, or a downtown hotel. It's relevant across the board. Also, when I say story, I mean communicating with your audience in a personal, relevant way, and that is with a compelling, emotional, descriptive narrative and with some personality and your own voice. So Sunset at the Palms had been one of 3 properties under the Sunset Resorts umbrella in Jamaica. The other 2 were much larger hotels in Montego Bay. Sunset at the Palms is in Negril. It was the smallest of the 3. We sort of likened it to a dinghy tied behind a couple of bigger boats. The other 2 properties moved to a management contract with AM Resorts, and so we were left to kind of start from scratch to identify Sunset at the Palms as its own thing, build a new website, and differentiate it from the other properties. There were certainly a lot of housekeeping difficulties that I wouldn't wish on anybody, all the different redirects and the different domain names that different people owned. But I'm here to talk about, pardon me, how we put together the website. Sunset at the Palms is much more intimate, more of a quiet Caribbean resort for adults only. It's all inclusive, not a family resort like the other two. So before we did anything else, we had to establish a clear brand position for Sunset at the Palms. And I believe this is relevant because the brand was, and it still is, the basis for all of our storytelling and all of our marketing communications. That is on the website, all of our advertising, social media, and everywhere else. So the first thing we did was complete an inside-out brand development project that involved people at the resort as well as us. I'm not here and I'm not going to go really deep into brand development today. You can see a lot more about it on our website. But what we did with Sunset at the Palms is recognize that it delivered an exceptional sensory experience. That is, the taste, the sense, the sounds, the sights, and the touches are all around a guest. And we built an experiential brand position around those senses, as opposed to we have lovely beaches, we have lovely rooms, we're full of lovely people, we have lovely rates, and we have lovely everything else. It was much more experiential brand. And that brand position, you skipped over a slide, is sensory magic. So when we started on the website, we were really ahead of the game. The brand, as we approach it, is the basis and the starting point for all of those stories that you want to tell. It makes it so much easier. Leila was talking about how you come up with the stories, and one good way is to have a clear brand in mind. That's a great starting point. It tells you what those stories ought to be about. It tells you what you ought to be talking about, and it'll tickle all sorts of ideas to you. So when we started, we were way ahead of the game, and so was Leonardo as they worked with us to create the site. And they didn't just work with these two words, this sensory magic. We gave them the entire brand document to work with, and that included how we got there, all the details of the brand support points, the brand essence, and all the information that went into it. Now, the design and writing of the website was a joint effort between Leonardo and our agency. The writer at Leonardo has more SEO experience than me, but I was able to make changes and revise the original copy and the design as necessary to ensure that it was within our brand, that it delivered our brand message, and spoke with our brand voice. At Nasution Hinkle, just a quick aside to explain something. Now we can go to that other slide. We believe that brand should drive everything. A clear brand is going to make it easy to know, as I said, what sort of storytelling you should be doing on your website. It should drive your public relations, your advertising, and the offers that you have, your collateral, even if there are 8 different companies and vendors and people doing those things. If they're all working from the same brand and the same brand document, they're going to be consistent. And also, this has a cost efficiency that your CFO will love. It just is much more cost efficient to have everybody working on the same play sheet. So it's relevant here that as we told the story, pardon me, of the sensory experience at Sunset at the Palms, we had a really powerful tool which to differentiate the property from its former siblings in Montego Bay. And that tool we could use for other marketing communications as well. So we worked with an existing photo library. We didn't have the time or the budget to start over. And we created a site with images and copy that delivered the sensory experience. We don't say we have lots of plants and flowers and gardens and trees. We tell stories of walks in the gardens. We don't say we have a nice beach. We tell stories of the sensory experiences at the beach and the beauty of the sunset. We tell stories of the spa experience, which at an all-inclusive, the spa is one of the few places that you can find incremental income. So it's important for us to tell that story as well as the others, and so on. So many websites you've seen are focused on the features you see at a resort, but our storytelling is more experiential and built around the sights, the touches, the scents, the tastes, and the sounds at Sunset at the Palms. We also use that same experiential storytelling approach in our media advertising, in posters that we've produced for travel agents. Everything we do is built around that experience. We use illustration in the external advertising, but everything is built around a story. Also, because our target is mostly mature travelers and because of budget constraints, the bulk of the social media for Sunset at the Palms is built around Facebook, and it employs the Leonardo Facebook widget. There's another agency that does this part of it for them, and as I said, because we're all working from the same brand position, they can tell the same kinds of stories there that we're telling on the website and we're telling in the advertising. So the Facebook page is a collection of stories. It's not just a list of packages and promotion. So is this working? I would really like to be able to say that every possible figure you can imagine, ADR, occupancy, direct booking, and the rest, is up from before. I can't do that because there really is no before, and that's because all three properties shared a common site. So any of the tracking information that I have from before comes from all three properties together. But I can tell you for a fact that according to the built-in metrics that we have, since the site went live in December of 2015, the average time spent by visitors from North America, which is by far our largest target market, has been about 10.5 minutes. Now, Leonardo tells me that according to the Adobe Digital Index this March, the average time spent on a travel website, including OTAs, is just a shade under 6 minutes. TravelClick research shows that the average time is about 2 3/4 minutes on hospitality sites. So we're beating the average in both cases. And I think we all know that the longer somebody stays on a site, the better the chances of making that into a client, a customer, somebody doing business with you. At the same time, 35% of visitors from the gallery page of our site, which is heavily storytelling, have clicked the Book Now button. The industry average of that is 28 to 32%, so we're slightly ahead of that. And that tells us that the stories we've developed and are telling travel shoppers are compelling enough to make them want to go further down our purchase path. So we're pretty excited about that. So we're going to take credit for the quality of the storytelling on the site. We just think that's keeping people there longer, that's pushing them to buy. And I think that both of these are really pretty much of a success story for what is, for all intents and purposes, a new property. Sunset at the Palms had no awareness of its own. It had no brand of its own. As I said, we had to pretty much start from scratch. The occupancy and rate at the Palms has stayed on a pace with Jamaica in general as it was before, with no drop-off. Direct bookings is holding strong. And all of those things combined to, again, what I said, all of us agree, is pretty much of a success story, albeit a modest one, but we put a lot of that credit to the website and the storytelling and the time we're keeping people there. And I really think that if you take a storytelling approach to your site with a for real, and I mean genuine for real brand promise, it will let you drive more people to your website. It will let you keep them there longer. It will let you deliver a clear brand message, and it can result in more business to you. And those people will have come to your site for the right reasons and not just price. And I don't think any of us wants to compete on price. At Sunset this year, our goal is to increase direct bookings. That's probably everybody's goal across the board. And we believe that the better our website tells our story and makes it easy to book, the more direct bookings we can expect. All our direct external promotions, PPC, Facebook ads, posts, advertising, etc., are all driving people to the website, which is going to do most of the heavy lifting for us. So what can you do to answer the second part? I mean, that's the first concern. Does it really work? Yes, it does really work. That at least twice as much time on the website, above average bookings directly from the website. Yes, having a storytelling approach to your website can work. Here's the answer to what can you do right now to start developing your own story and the basis for your website content. Number one, start with a clear brand. It's, as I said before, it's the easiest way to know where to start. And storytelling is just a terrific way to deliver your brand. Just as an aside here, I want you to know exactly what I talk about when I say a brand. And it's not your logo, it's not your corporate colors, it's not your identity guidelines, that's branding. Your brand is a reason to do business with you. It's the story of the experience people will get at your property and what's unique about it. So you need to make sure that your brand is based on reality, just as Leila was saying, and not aspirations. Find out what combination of ingredients and experiences are unique to your property and use them to create your stories. And I'll just say, if you can't determine what combination of ingredients sets you apart and makes you unique, or at least somewhat unique, you have a whole other problem. And this isn't a problem that your website can solve, and it's not a problem that's created by your website. Have a
Woody,
clear written... Yes.
Sorry, there's a question from the audience that seems appropriate to tee up now from Jonathan, and he's saying, it's kind of a comment. He goes, I'm having a hard time finding my hotel story because I'm a property at the side of the highway. I don't have fabulous beaches and things like that to talk about, and I know you said at the beginning you can apply this approach to any kind of a property, so maybe you can talk to that for a second.
Well, there must be something about your property that sets it apart from the others, and as I said, it's often a combination of ingredients. Usually when we develop a brand is based on 3 to 5 brand support points, and I don't know your particular property. I do know how you can go about discovering those. But it might be that you're closest to the airport. It might be that you have the best rates. It might be that you have free parking. I mean, it could be that combination of convenience to the airport with great rates and free parking. And you mix those things together, and that comes up with your unique position. Look at Motel 6. That's a national brand, an international brand perhaps, but they've got a brand. They've got what's clear. It's the best rate of any low-cost wine. We'll keep the light on for you and so forth. They have created a brand that has made them unique. So everybody has something that reduces their competitive set. I mean, I believe this. I know this. It's
Right.
just not a matter of sitting down one afternoon and saying, well, what's different about us? It's a matter of going through all the aspects and characteristics of your property and determining where they fit in and what combination of those are relevant, which ones are BS, which ones added together put you in a unique position.
Yeah, and I think that's right on, Woody. And just to emphasize what you just said, I remember the marketing person from a Red Roof Inn, and they said, "I don't have a story." We're on the exact same scenario. We're on the side of the highway, and we're a truck stop, and we'd like to get more of that business in, and because the truck drivers, they see other trucks there and they stop, and my response to them was, you just told me your story. That's what you're bringing to the table, is you're the ideal location for your audience, which happens to be people driving trucks up and down the freeway. So
yeah, your brand is usually created from a combination of ingredients. It
Right.
might be that just as Darlene said, you're by the highway designed for truck drivers, or it might be that you're by the highway close to the airport, or it might be that you're by the highway across the street from every fast food joint you can possibly imagine. I mean, who knows what it might be, but it's usually a combination of ingredients that taken together will make you unique. Some of your competitors might have one or more of those ingredients, but they don't all have all 5 quite the same way. But
yeah,
once you
and
go ahead.
No, the other thing. Sorry.
Go on.
A great way if you're having a hard time finding your story is to look at the reviews that people write. They are often great indications of, your guests are great observers, right? So they often can point you in that direction.
Sure. Once you have figured out what your brand position is, what makes you unique, or what combination of ingredients makes you unique, make sure that you have a written document that explains it, that details how you came up with it, and all the support data that you have for it that you can share with anybody who has any hand in your marketing communications. Very often, if you're a small property, it might be you, or it might be somebody who works with you. If you're larger, you might have a web company, a PR firm, and an ad agency. But if you've got all that information in one place written down, everybody, as I said, could understand what sort of stories they should be developing and delivering. And the kind of stories you tell depends on what kind of hotel you are. This is somewhat relevant to what the question was just asked. You might tell stories about improved productivity for business meetings for business travelers. Or you might tell stories about bonding opportunities for families, or maybe romantic experiences for couples, and so on. So your brand is going to drive what kind of stories you tell. Also, tell an experiential story on your site. Don't just describe the features. Advertising 101, as long as I've been in it, is benefits, not features. For example, you're not selling, again in the resort reference, you're not selling a beautiful white sand beach. You're selling the emotional reward of an afternoon on a white sand beach while you feel the island breeze and hear the gentle waves lap the shore. Make the first pages enticing and emotional. You're not trying to get somebody to be able to pass a pop quiz about your property. You want them to get excited enough to stay on the site and keep on reading. Third thing is the kind of writing that I typically do as an advertising copywriter and SEO are not SEO writing are not exactly the same, and I get that. As Leila and Darlene have both said, the SEO has changed. It's not just packing it with keywords, but a lot of people still do it, unfortunately. I think you should resist the temptation to go overboard on adjectives in an attempt to gas up SEO results. I think you still see that out there. A beach doesn't have to be a wide, snow-white, sugary soft oceanfront sand beach. A soft white sand beach might be better. There's an old joke that an SEO copywriter walks into a bar, grill, pub, public house, drinks a beer, wine, and liquor, all ordered from the friendly, red-faced Irish bartender. I don't know if there's any tech heads out there, but my apologies for what I'm about to say, but I believe your first responsibility is to your reader, not to a computer algorithm. You're writing for people, not robots. And I wrote this down so I wouldn't forget it, but that's my honest, frank, unvarnished, personal, actual, truthful opinion, considered opinion, professional opinion, and belief. Number 4, make your website experience look, feel, and sound as close to the actual guest experience at your property as possible. Whether it's a vacation site, leisure transit, business transit, or meetings, make your site show that. Use lots of visuals. Again, there's that pop quiz things I talked about. You want them to get excited about it. And the last thing is that nothing is set in stone. Your website is a living thing. And I'm not here to pimp for Leonardo, but that's one real advantage of their site. The Sunset of the Palm site is done on their Visibly product, and it allows you to make really fast and timely changes to your site if you want to. And I'm talking, put a package up in the next 30 minutes if you want to. It's a simple thing to do, and you should be able to do that quickly or have somebody who can. I know back in the old days when these things first started, somebody would have a price change they wanted to the website, and they'd send it to Sendine or somebody and wait 2.5 weeks before it was made. Those days are pretty much dead, and you should make sure that they're dead on your website. You can put up something, you can take it down. If a guest sends you some pictures that they've taken, you can put them up immediately. So take advantage of that time benefit. I want you to remember that nobody goes to a particular hotel or a resort because of the rooms, the food, the beach, the spa, or the deck chairs. They go because of how those things make them feel, or the emotional benefit they get, whether it's business or vacation. They go because of the experience they get at those hotels or those resorts. So tell your stories about those experiences. Thank you.
That's amazing, Woody. We had a lot of comments come in the chat box thanking you for giving them very specific things to do with regard to storytelling. So your guidance that you shared was right on. So thanks again.
Good. I hope nobody asks any hard questions I can't answer.
So we are going to do another poll, and we'd like to get the audience's sense of what you thought about today's content. Is it what you expected? Was it valuable? And the answers to these questions help guide us for future content because, you know, as Leila said earlier, right, we're all starved for time, and so we want to make sure that these things are valuable and they serve a purpose and that you can go back and put them actually into practice. So thanks everybody for weighing in today, and the majority of you guys thought that it was very valuable, so thank you. We appreciate you weighing in, and I'm going to close that poll, and we're just going to finish out our discussion today. So Visibly, Woody referred to it, is powered by leading cloud-based technology. It's a complete multi-channel hotel digital marketing system that is built specifically for hotels and alternative accommodation providers. I know that some of you in the audience, Kay, you've told us that you're in the vacation rental business, so this is something you may consider. It gives you control over your digital marketing by empowering you to create, publish, update, and maintain visually stunning hotel websites, mobile sites, social media apps, and digital brochures for third-party travel websites. And as Woody kindly said, it really does make digital marketing better and easier. It reduces your marketing costs because it's very one low monthly subscription fee. It makes it easier to manage all the digital marketing without a ton of technical skills, eliminates long turnaround times, centralizes it all in one system, and is purpose-built. The websites are purpose-built to really drive conversions that will maximize results and generate revenue. And today, more than 6,000 hotels around the globe use Visly to manage their digital marketing. So that is that. So we're getting close to the end of our session today. As I said up front, we've recorded the webinar, so we're going to send you a thank you for joining us email with a link to that recording. So please listen to it again or share with your colleagues. And just a note about next month's web event, we're going to be talking about strategies to thrive in the complex travel shopping journey. Leila referred to that. We have Alan Young and Greg Bodenlos with us, and both are very well versed on this subject. So we have a couple of more questions that I think we can tee up, and Woody, I'll start with you. You're a writer. What's your opinion about using blogs in your website? Do you think that's an important piece?
Was that for me?
Yeah, that's
yes,
for you.
Too. Absolutely. I think the key about them is to keep them up to date, to don't just have nothing on the blog and not keep it up. But I think as long as the blog is not just a repeat of what's already on your website, it can be more timely, it can be more informational. Our agency blog is a little looser, a little more conversational, sometimes a little more vulgar. Just don't have it be the exact same material that's on your website, and make sure it's updated. Absolutely, it's sort of it's one way to really get your personality across because it's less structured than your website.
Excellent. Thanks, Sandra. Hope that answers your question. And then, Leila, question for you. So how can you, through storytelling, recover past negative reviews? What would your advice be?
Well, the first thing is, with a negative review, never ignore it. You want to meet it head on. And I think if you take more of a conversational voice, and if you include others at your property in this direct approach, because everybody fails. Everybody does. Every business does. And sometimes it is simply the acknowledgement of that failure is what your guest or someone is looking for. So telling the story, we dropped the ball, and telling it in a conversational, or as Woody said, personal way. And that's an effective technique with storytelling.
Excellent. Thanks, Leila. Well, thank you, Woody Hinkle from Nasuti, and Leila Rack, Rack Enterprises. We really appreciate your time and your guidance to the audience. I know the audience loved it, judging by all the questions that have come in the chat box and the interaction with our discussion today, and that's always a great indication that what we've shared with the audience has been effective and productive for everyone. So thanks again. Hope everyone will join us next month on the webinar I just spoke about, and have a good rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next time. Goodbye.